So I want to start with a story and then address something that I know is on many of our minds. So the story takes us back to my teenage years in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, which is a town on the other side of the George Washington Bridge that I've spoken about. And I remember growing up that while there were a lot of Jews in the community, there was also, especially around holiday times, very much of a Christian feel. And especially around Christmas, most of the songs that we sang were Christian songs, and they were Christian songs that had lyrics that were very much attuned to Christian narrative and celebration. When I got to high school, we would occasionally do a Hanukkah song, but again, mostly there was an emphasis that, looking back on it, I realize demonstrated that there is a huge Christian influence on our country in all kinds of ways. You're no doubt aware of the strong reactions to the leaked Supreme Court documents that pretend the repeal of Roe versus Wade. And this is something which would leave abortion rights to individual states. Now, there are many lenses that we can use to try to understand this. From the perspective of treatment of women, this would leave the status and treatment of women in a certain vulnerable space because women clearly are much more impacted by these decisions. This also involves inequality of income and status, as people who are lacking in resources are going to be much more vulnerable as a result of this potential change. And what I want to reflect on this morning as a rabbi is that the repeal of this decision also has repercussions that frankly will be discriminating against people who abide by Jewish practice. This may be apparent to us, but I want to unpack that Jewish views on these matters are different by and large than Christian views. And it's important for us to understand that and to be mindful of that. Christianity is a religion that is largely based on doctrine. And the doctrines, without getting into all the details, of original sin and salvation have led to outcomes that are affecting reality on the highest level. Judaism is a legal tradition. Judaism handles individual cases and tries to balance different priorities. Many people who are frankly anti-Semitic across the ages have pointed to the fact that Judaism as a legal religion is a bad thing. I would argue that this is often the source of our flexibility and strength and holiness. So a few words that hopefully everybody here will find illuminating and elucidating. Obviously, there is a range of views among Christian groups, but the views that are the most restrictive are the views that are having the strongest impact on the national conversation. Jewish sources going back thousands of years distinguish between the status of the mother and the status of the fetus. These are not words that were written recently. These are words that go back thousands of years. There are rabbinic views that are more restrictive, rabbinic views that are less restrictive, but all recognize the importance of maintaining the physical and emotional safety and well-being of the mother. So this leads to different conclusions. Jewish people value life enormously. We value potential life enormously, but there are times when we are wrestling with a life and a potential life, or one life and another life. And the conclusion that Jewish leaders have reached across the centuries is different than what we are seeing emerging today in the public sphere. So I want to share a few thoughts about this as a rabbi, as a Jew, as somebody who cares about the United States of America, as somebody who cares about rights of individuals. First, The separation of church and state, which is enshrined in our Constitution, is a very good thing for Jewish people. That is something for us to remember. When religion impacts national policy, it is often not our religion that is impacting that policy. That's something we have to be thoughtful about and forthright in understanding. So when we are involved in alliances with other groups, which is well and good and which could have enormous benefit, we have to be mindful of the parameters of how we approach certain realities. And we should advocate, in my view, for laws which allow individuals to be able to navigate their own moral sensibilities as they sometimes emerge from their religious traditions. Number two, Jewish people, as all people, need to learn as much about their tradition as possible. And that doesn't stop at bar mitzvah. I am looking out at Emmet's friends and knowing that these guys are going to continue because they love being together and because they understand and their families understand the importance of continuing to learn. If we do not understand our tradition in a subtle and complex and full way, then we're going to make generalizations that sometimes are off base. The more knowledgeably we can face all of the realities of our lives, the ups, the downs, the in-betweens, the more likely we are to be able to live in a way that is transformative in a positive fashion, not just for us, but for other people. Third thought, there's a very powerful statement in rabbinic tradition, and it goes like this: Al tadun et chavercha ad shetagia limkomo. Do not judge another person until you are in that person's shoes. I think that is something critical that we need to understand. If we do not find ourselves in certain situations, let us refrain from implicitly or explicitly calling other people's behavior into question, especially when people are wrestling with the most complicated personal, moral, and emotional decisions. To call other people's behavior into question without being in their situation and often without understanding all of the facts contradicts Jewish tradition. We have to be aware of that. I'm going to take a step back, share a word of Torah, and then I would like to conclude. A crucial thread in this morning's Torah portion is that every aspect of our lives is infused with Kedusha, with holiness. It's not just in the ark. It's not just up on a mountain. It's not just over there somewhere. It is right here among us. How we celebrate the festivals, how we celebrate Shabbat. And I love the interpretation that Emmett shared with us this morning about Shabbat, not just being rest, but being real renewal. How we speak to each other and how we don't speak to each other and about each other. All of that is infused with Kedusha, with holiness, ideally. And that includes the most difficult decisions that we have to make. They need to be approached with a commitment to doing that which is holy. And sometimes that involves a profound, existentially exhausting balance of different priorities in a situation that is less than ideal. So I want to conclude by saying, everyone, regardless of religion, deserves to be able to chart an appropriate ethical path through life's most challenging situations to make the best and the holiest decisions possible at every point in time. For my part, I will continue to advocate for the rights of women to make these important decisions in keeping with their own needs and their own sensibilities. For my part, I will advocate for the rights of Jewish people to be able to follow their own religious traditions about this and other matters, and that is true of all people. And I will advocate for doing what we need to do to equalize rights and options for all people, regardless of their gender or religion or their economic circumstances. Holiness on a beautiful day when everything is going exactly as expected, that's easy. Holiness when we are in a difficult situation, that is the challenge. Judaism provides a roadmap for how to bring Kedusha in our lives, even at the most difficult moments. This is a challenge that we can only meet if we have the strength and understanding of our traditions behind us and the support and the understanding of one another. Shabbat Shalom.